Chevron 1, coded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry hammer, and let's set the dogs of war.
Chevron 2 is coded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
Val also said you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that, killer stuff. I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Now, come on, you can, little boy.
Great Scott!
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass! I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elephant.
What about side by side with a friend?
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.
Hail and howdy, everybody. Welcome back to another Saturday Night Drive-In where my internet fixed itself and I'm back on camera. Shut up. God, he's gonna ruin my fun, don't you? He's gonna ruin my feeling good. I can stream again normally. Oh, break again. Anyway, hi everybody. Welcome. I hope everybody's having a good Saturday evening. And I think we're gonna have some fun today. And I as always, Jed, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk about this movie, mainly because Adam continues his long-standing tradition of picking movies that just don't hold up. I'm just embarrassed.
Oh, damn it. Samuel was right.
I'm kidding. I just needed to see you sweat for a second.
I hate you. I hate you so much. God damn it.
I did enjoy this film. It was my first watch through, but I do have some criticisms, of course. But I'm excited to talk about it.
There are criticisms to be sure. There are criticisms to be sure. Listen, I will tell my story. I've been watching this movie forever. There are little things throughout it that always get me. It's tiny little things, but I'm just glad you liked it. You guys got to understand.
I know you'd said that. You said you were worried about me liking it. So
always worried. I always worry. I do not have a good track record with you for the past year right now. Past year, there have been very big misses between what I love from my childhood and all this stuff, and you go, or so I want you to like this shit so much. Anyway, I'm glad it's going to be one of those ones. Anyway, and we are joined once again by our good friend, green-haired Anti-Liberal Gal. Getting ready for Vegas. You excited?
Yes, I am. I realized that I had muted my physical mic for a moment to say something to someone earlier, and I had said, I was like, "You're trolling. There's no way." And you said that, and I'm like, "Oh my God, he didn't even hear me." He's trolling. He has to be.
I'm too susceptible at this point because I'm always expecting he's going to be disappointed in me and my choices.
I was expecting the same thing, like just because I want him to like it so much. But then I was just like, "There's no way he can't like this movie. It holds up."
I know. I mean, so as you guys can see tonight, we are here to talk the Fifth Element. Hail and howdy to everybody across both chats. Hit the like buttons, subscribe to the channels, links in the description below, and let's get started because I want to talk about this. Now, I think I'm the only person who was there when it released in the theater. Did anyone besides me see it in theater for the first time?
I don't remember if I saw it in theater.
Okay.
When did it come out?
92.
Oh, I would have.
I want to say 92. Jed, do we have?
Yeah.
It was 92?
I can look it up. Yeah,
Look it
but
up
no,
real quick.
I didn't watch it in theaters. That's
Well, of
for
course
sure.
you didn't. You're a child.
Wait, are you younger than me,
97.
97. Okay, so I'm a little older. Okay, I'm a little older.
I
Okay.
still wasn't born yet. Yeah.
Okay, so
In
Did you just say you still weren't born yet?
yes, he's a child. He's a child like Derby, but he's not Derby.
I did live in the 90s for about 30 days.
That's like me saying that I lived in the 80s
No,
for 3 months.
I was born at the very tail end of 99.
Yeah, it's listen. At least he's better than Dermy, okay? At least he's better than Dermy. All right.
Wait, was Dermy out of the 90s?
No,
he's
he
older
wasn't.
than me.
He's a little older, but I mean, it's still Dermy. At least listen, Jed has an old soul. That's why we like him, and that's why I forgive him for being a child. Anyway, I was there though in 97.
It's possible I did.
And here's the thing: when this movie first came out, its marketing was zero. Nobody knew what this movie was. All we saw was a couple of strange posters. It wasn't even the poster that you're familiar with later on, where you see Bruce Willis, you see Gary Oldman, you see Mila on the cover. It was just this picture, The Fifth Element, and a weird thing. At least that's what I remember in my theaters locally. And we went in there having no idea what this was going to be. We just knew we think it's a science fiction movie. That was back in the day where we went and showed up and we just watched the movie, what was there. We didn't we didn't need the marketing. It was like, okay, this movie just came out. Let's go check it out. And we went in there, my friends and I, everybody at that time, no idea. And we were all blown away by what did we just see? This thing is, wow, it's crazy sci-fi. It's a little off the wall. The performances were just spot on. We didn't know it was a Bruce Willis movie. I didn't know it was a Bruce Willis movie going in. I had no idea. And Gary Oldman comes out of nowhere to choose scenery and be what I consider Zorg an underrated villain. People don't give him enough love for just how pure evil he is, and we'll get into it. So when it came out, it was great, and then I fell in love with it. It was I think it was the third DVD I ever bought when I started switching to DVD collecting. I mean, I had my VHS stuff, but it was like the third one. My first one I remember was Mummy Returns, then American Pie 2, and then I think this was the third one I bought. Pretty sure.
That is just a weird list of DVDs.
That's
random.
Well, I was transitioning away from VHS at the time, so
you
I
just grabbed what you saw.
Basically, yeah, and I wasn't really knowing a purchase, and my first DVD player was my PS2, so I just had this thing. I wasn't sure, and I was like, oh, I just saw this movie, I liked it. Let's get it. It was kind of spontaneous buying at that point. I wasn't really thinking about collecting, but it was, and I've loved everything. I had a weird one. I had my original DVD, which I don't have anymore because I just upgraded it to Blu-ray finally. It was a double-sided. One side was full screen 4:3, the other side was widescreen 16:9, and every time I had to watch it, that one, it was always okay. Check the side. Don't want to put the wrong one in because the wrong one is 4:3. You don't want to watch full screen. And
so you're not a Zack Snyder.
No, Zack Snyder. No. You know, and I just remembered today I have to watch goddamn Rebel Moon Part 2 in a week.
Why?
Sucks to be you, nerd.
Because I did the first part. I have to do the second part.
Yeah. But did you hear what he said about Rebel Moon?
Yes, I did hear that. I did hear that.
That'll be great.
We'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll talk about that tomorrow. That's a moment of chuckle for tomorrow. Roundtable.
He might actually be good at his job then.
Well, hey, he likes certain types of close-ups. Anyway,
he does. And slow-mo.
No, it's like super slow-mo. Are you kidding?
Hey, I made fun of that so hard in the first.
Hey, it'll work in his new career. It'll work in his new career.
If I can, so I watch all my videos because I have a lot of people I watch on YouTube on 1.75 speed, even Disparu. Okay, so I watched a video that Disparu was talking about Rebel Moon, like the trailer, his reaction to part 2, and he showed the slow-mo parts, and they were slow for 1.75 speed. Like I thought I was watching slow-mo.
I called Rebel Moon Part 1 slow motion the movie. That's in my review. That's what I called it. Anyway, but that's a discussion for another time. We're talking about a good movie. That's my fault. I got us off tangent there. But yeah, so this was out of nowhere, and it is latched onto my heart as it latched onto many. This is one of those movies that you either love it or you hate it. It's one of those. And it became a cult classic. I don't think it was profitable back in the day. But it found its niche later. And even I have another story. Well, I'll talk about that at the end. We talk about the soundtrack. I have a soundtrack story, but I loved it, and I can never. It's a happy place movie for me because and Jed, can you agree? It's while it is definitely science fiction, it's got that little bit of fantasy in there, right? Would you say that?
Well, mainly because it doesn't take itself seriously, and
No.
there's a lot of aspects to it that I would agree with that, especially with the prophecy, the more loose terms of sci-fi. Like, it is not hard sci-fi. Like, they don't even understand how decompression works in a hangar bay in a spaceship, and that's the type of stuff I noticed. So yeah, it is very much not hard sci-fi, and it's okay. It's what it's going for, and this is, at least story style, it's very traditional in a lot of fantasy settings. You know, the hero who comes up an ancient, long forgotten evil and stuff like that, religious figures. Like, I would 100% agree this is a fantasy film in a sci-fi setting. I would agree with that.
Yeah. So Gal, when you first saw this, what was your reaction when you first saw this movie?
I was so young. I don't think I saw it in the theater. So I was 7 or 8. And I just remember like sitting with my family after dinner type of thing in the living room, watching the movie and just loving it. Like our dad loved the movie, our mom loved the movie. It's such a great movie. And those are like the great memories of just, rewatching it with the family, watching. I don't remember the first time watching it. I have a really crap memory though, which is why. And that's just, it's always just a fuzzy memory in the back of my head that, oh, let's put The Fifth Element on because that's what was on the TV or VHS. Pop that in because we recorded it from the TV on our VHS type of thing. And it's just always been in my life. I rewatch it multiple times throughout the year. I love this movie so much. And I was so happy when I got to cosplay Lilu.
Yes.
I wish I could have found my multi-pass. I don't know where it is.
Lilu Dallas multi-pass. That is the line that every time, there's 2 lines that everybody says when this movie comes up. First, Lilu Dallas multi-pass, and then bada big boom. That those are the 2 lines that everybody does immediately. Now, I have plenty of favorite lines in this movie.
Oh yeah.
And moments. And as far as, quality goes, Alyssa, I live with someone who is essentially very high culture, my mother. And all my life, whenever this movie comes out, she listens to it. And she gives this movie the highest praise when it comes to the diva and the opposite, because she's into classical. She has a very perfect ear for opera. And she says that that scene nails it. That is a perfectly done musical scene. She loves it every time. And that scene we'll get when we talk about it. You don't expect it. You don't expect that moment. And that is why we save the soundtrack talk usually for the end of the show, but I will say it now. This is a movie that is heavily interwoven with its soundtrack. That a lot of these scenes are made classic because of those soundtracks, or they are definitely enhanced by it. Either way, all right, so let's get started. Fifth Element, as Jed mentioned when I was mentioning the fantasy part, it starts with a prophecy, essentially. Every 5,000 years, evil just appears in the universe. It appears. And some ancient, undisclosed peoples, not necessarily the Montechiwan, they're just one of the caretakers, I believe. I would look at this. They set up a weapon to stop evil. They literally created a weapon to stop evil. They took the 4 elements of the universe, earth, wind, and fire, and then made a 5th element, which essentially, I would say, heart, Captain Planet.
I think life makes more sense.
Life, heart. I just want to make the heart joke. And use it to create the light of creation to banish evil every 5,000 years. Not defeat it, just banish it, send it back to clearly the other dimension it comes from. And we start our story in 1914 Egypt, the beginning of World War I. War is coming. The Montechiwan come. We get a nice get Luke Perry cameo, R.I.P. Luke Perry. And it's an interesting way to start it, where it's just it's giving us the lore dump while entertaining us in a nice little prologue, I feel. I mean, Jed, were you interested right away in this moment?
I was confused more so because similar to how you described it going into the theater, I knew nothing about this film. Of course, I'd heard the classic lines and seen the scene where Leela Ooh jumps off the building. I didn't know there was any space travel in this movie. I didn't know there was prophecy. I knew absolutely nothing. So I was just trying to figure it out in that moment. But for the prologue itself, it is fascinating. It feels like the opening of a lot of other films throughout the entire beginning. I was thinking a lot about The Mummy, the original Brendan Fraser Mummy. That was the film that it was harkening back towards the most for me. But it was a neat little story trying to figure out who the good guys were or not. The priest trying to, poison them. So you assume he's the bad guy. And then later it's revealed that maybe he's not so bad. And it's a nice little story with humor that I've heard people quote, like the Aziz Light portion. Yeah, I do have to say the alien design is bonkers.
What aliens you saw, they just went web. Montechuan, they are not anything classified, but it's good practical effects though.
Yeah, they're very good practical effects. And when it comes to a lot of this stuff in the movie, like the alien design, really the production design in general, it doesn't necessarily work for me. It's a little too over the top. I'm not going to count it into my critique because it's very, very much a me thing. But a lot of the campiness in the designs, if nothing else, sometimes in the performances, like Gary Oldman, is just too much for me. So I can't enjoy it as much as other people, but I realize that is very subjective, so I can't incorporate subjectivity to that degree into my review.
But you said it perfectly before. The movie knows what it's doing. It's
absolutely that's why I can't.
Luc Besson leaned into it hard. We are going to make this. We are going to give you a future 300 years in the 2200s or 2300. Yeah, 22, 23, 19. Oh, well, yeah, 2200s. In the 2200s, we're gonna give you a crazy looking world, and we're gonna give you seeded little bits of the world building. We're never gonna fully world build for you. We're gonna give you little bits, but when it comes to the visuals, we're just gonna go with that. People are gonna look plastic. Their clothes are gonna look plastic. They're gonna have weird ass hats, and they're good. The design of everything is just gonna be, I would say, what's the word? Kind of 60s pop a little bit, how they would look at the future. You think about it, everything is kind of broad, over the top, over accentuated when it comes to design.
I mean, you just have to look at the radio host to realize things are over the top in this movie. I think that is probably the best thing they predicted about the future, because I can 100% see him being popular in today's world.
Ruby Rod would be, and Ruby Rod is he's an amazing Chris. This was one of the two movies that put Chris Tucker into stardom at the time. This and Friday, which him and Mr. Lister, I always call him Zeus from The Holds Barred. They were in Friday together. So it's a lot of people who had been in other movies together are actually in this movie at the same time with each other, that's just a little cinema thing I enjoy. But this was a movie that put Chris Tucker into a position where he did Rush Hour with Jackie Chan. So that made him popular for a while. But he again, over the top Ruby Rod, totally effeminate, but a poon hound.
Yes, it's so
total
good.
Poon hound, and it's good. But so we get this thing, and Jed, let me ask you this, and then Gal, I'll go to you. I like the editing in this movie a lot. The cuts, the way they do it, the sharp cuts from one period to another and one moment to another. I really like it. I find, even though sometimes they're sharp, I find them fluid, and it gets cleanly from one scene to another. You wouldn't think it, but I like it. How did you feel about that? They do a lot of quick jump cuts.
It's kind of one of those middle good type editings for this film, because I didn't notice the editing. I usually consider not noticing editing as a positive thing.
Okay.
There are editings that I notice that are like, oh my God, that was incredible. And that's, of course, in a higher tier. But this isn't a very good tier where I didn't notice the editing whatsoever. So I put it in the film's favor.
Okay, that's one of the things. See, I've seen it so many times. Today I was trying to look at things from a different aspect and talk about the editing. I was okay, so that's good. That's good, because usually when editing's bad, you jump on it immediately. But there's a lot of edits. I mean, Gal, how did you like the shift in the beginning from the past to the future?
It was interesting. I mean, trying to think back of like the first time I watched it. I don't know what I thought of it when I was a kid. because I love it and know it so much, it's hard for me to really answer that, honestly. I love kind of the foreshadowing of the priest to later on in the movie, where so like you were questioning the morals of the priest, like he's trying to poison them, is he good, is he bad? And it's more, you kind of learn later on that it's these priests are doing what's like for the greater good. They have to do questionable things in order, because they're the ones that have this weight on their shoulders, because they have to facilitate the evil being destroyed. And so that's more what I love of like between the transition is just kind of, they're giving you that little nugget of foreshadow where you don't really know. And then later on, there are certain things that the priest, thousands of years or hundreds of years later, we know it is thousands. Whatever.
No, it's hundreds. It's hundreds.
Hundreds. Yeah.
Hundreds, yeah.
I'm bad at math. Don't judge me.
You're not Asian. It's okay.
Yeah. To where like you see him and you're just like, oh, okay. I see what they were doing there. So that's more what I appreciate.
To protect life. That's the line.
Yes.
We do this to protect life. And greater good is the best way to put it. It's about making sure. I mean, one loss of life is a tragedy, but we're talking about the universe here, because the darkness, the evil, Mr. Shadow, as he's referred to, the entity that is the dark planet, it wants nothing but to just wipe out life. There's no great battle to be had. It is just literally a ball of fire that will, after it plows through Earth, which it was created to be basically the barrel of the gun, so to speak. That for the bullet is Lilu, Earth is the gun, or at least the temple is the barrel, and Earth is the gun. And after that, then it will just go everywhere. Boom, 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 get bigger and bigger and bigger until everything has been destroyed. It wants nothing except oblivion. And that's why Mr. Shadow, even though he is the ultimate evil in this, it's such a simple thing when it transitions from the past to the beginning story, where you see it forming that eclipse. And I find it funny. We're watching this, and in 2 days there's an eclipse. So now we're all thinking, "Oh shit, Mr. Shadow's here."
What's more funny? Sorry, you just reminded me. More foreshadowing is kind of like a comparison between. So one of my favorite things to quote from the movie is actually from the beginning. My brother and I have like a thing where we're like, Aziz, light. And it's to like turn the light off or the light on. And then you talking about Mr. Shadow, I feel like, I don't know the right word, but they're emphasizing Aziz, light in the beginning, and later on when the Mr. Shadow is coming to take all light.
The shadow
yes.
over, you see the flaming, the flames of the dark planet covering. Yeah, it's good. That's a good point. That didn't even occur to me.
It literally just came to me, and I've seen this movie thousands of times.
What I want to talk about Mr. Shadow for a minute here, because as the threat, he's the threat, but Zorg is the villain, and that's an interesting dynamic they created. But I love the idea that Mr. Shadow is just that. He's there. He's a threat, and whenever he is in somebody, his presence is ominous on somebody, like when he's on the phone with Zorg, or the original the original ship is attacking him to evil begets evil moment. The brown goop, never explained, and I like it that way. I like it that it's just, this thing has such it warps reality so much when you're in its presence. Brown goop will appear on you.
Barbecue sauce. That's what I always thought it was.
And what I love is after Zorg's encounter on the phone call, when it stops, he messes with it, and you can see it just was there. It's that spot, and I like that idea of this thing is a threat. You're not supposed to know. It's, in fact, I'd say eldritch almost. It is something beyond your comprehension, and I like the way that works. All right, so.
Just talking about that real quick, the brown goo. Of course, I'd like to know how he's doing it. I'm one of those people who really likes to dive into the world building and lore of things. But if the film's not going to tell me, which I think is totally fine in the context, like you're saying, it's something otherworldly, beyond human comprehension. I really appreciate how the film let a trust to the audience. It's such a simple thing back in the day, but because of modern movies, we have to emphasize it, that a modern movie would just be like, oh, look at the brown goo on his face. It's from Mr. Shadow.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
we can put two
Oh,
and two together.
You just
Thank
talked
you.
to Shadow, didn't you? Oh,
There'd be someone walking in making an
Mhm.
awful reference, or when the admiral at the beginning, or the captain at the beginning, got it right before his ship blew up.
Yeah.
Some officer just look at him and was like, "Oh, Mr. Shadow's inside you, isn't he?"
Mhm.
It's like, no, the movie lets you figure it out, and it's not anything complicated, so it's not like a profound piece of trust in the audience like something like Inception, but it is something that we have to note in the modern movie landscape.
And once again, Mr. Shadow, his introduction, it's all visuals. It's all visuals. The dimensional rift that creates the planet. As it grows, we see evil begets evil. And then I really always like the moment, because I bring up the transitional from that moment to the next scene with Corbin waking up, when Mr. Shadow goes after the ships as it explodes. You see that skull, that grinning skull just lunge into the camera, and then Corbin wakes up, and you miss it, blinking, you miss it. Corbin, in his opening moments there, mentions, "I just had a nightmare." So was he? I wonder, is he connected to this somehow,
Like
beyond
part of the
just
prophecy. Yeah.
is it? And let's go into the characters then, because we get introduced to Corbin Dallas right away, our down on his luck protagonist, our hero, or actually, wait, yeah, because we go to Corbin, and then we go to the. I'm trying. I just watched it today. It's all fresh, but I'm jumbling it in my head because I'm trying to decide how to talk about this. Go ahead, Jim.
If we're going chronologically, we could we talk about the president and his crew that we saw a lot in the beginning, and the priest.
Yeah.
So the president storyline, I'm afraid to admit, is one of my least favorite parts of the movie. I love that actor from The Dark Knight. He was incredible in The Dark Knight, but in this film, it just came across as weird and way more campy than the rest of the film. So I feel like we could have cut out a lot of the present storyline and still understood what was going on, because we find out a lot of this information from the prologue and from the priest later on with Lilu, that with how long the runtime of the movie already is, we could have cut out the president near entirely and his whole gang.
I think it still works because it shows sort of the slight incompetence of government at work.
Oh, it's so incompetent, where they have to rely on a radio broadcast for intel.
Yeah,
that is horrendously embarrassing.
But I do love that, because then once again, that part there, you get also the introduction of Ian Holm's priest, Vito Cornelius. Ian Holm.
Oh, he's my favorite character in the movie.
Yeah,
bar none.
He balances his performance so well between the dramatic and the slight comic relief. Just slight, and that it only works because of his ability to perform. It's I every time I do that, it's like Gal did it. It's every time.
He's great,
and Vito Cornelius is fantastic. And I gotta admit this comes from a period of time, and it's only ingrained in me because that's how I looked at movies for a certain while. I would always try and cast characters in a party for an RPG, and I'm like, oh, we got our healer. The priest got a healer, and I always saw that. But all right, so after the whole introduction of Mr. Shadow entering and Vito's defeated, and we get the introduction of Corbin. And listen, Bruce Willis doesn't do anything special in this role. He's Bruce Willis.
He's just Bruce Willis.
He's doing the Bruce Willis Bruno thing.
He's great at it, but
it's not John McClane. It's not anything, but it's still just Bruce Willis doing his thing, and I love every second of it because you remember that this is the mid to late 90s. Bruce Willis is still one of those classic action stars from the 80s, still getting it done. And you got to realize there's only 1.5 action set pieces in this movie. There's Lilu kicking ass during the opera scene, and then there's Corbin annihilating the Mangalores. That's it. So you basically you have an action star, but you give him one action scene, and you saved it. Of course, also, I'll talk. Wait till I take it. I'll talk. We'll talk about that in detail there. The introduction of Corbin. I like this type of thing, at least his talk, because through his behavior and his interactions on the phone with Fingers, and then looking around his apartment, you get everything you need to know about Corbin in less than 3 minutes.
Oh, it's a masterclass in character introduction.
Yeah, everything.
There's a few over the top lines that are just like exposition, bold-face exposition, but all the subtlety, like you're talking about with the phone call he had, the little things around his apartment, throwaway comments. We're getting a very good layout for the apartment, which is important later when Lilu shows up for the first time with the priest and everyone else. Like that scene is probably my favorite one from a writing standpoint, just because of how concise and well written and well, directed. The production design, everything was working so well for that scene.
And what I love in that first, so you get, I love the whole show. Don't tell. You see all the military awards. His conversation with Finger lets him know. You also realize he's a man suffering from a broken heart, and that's I mean, Gal, you can appreciate this, I bet, because you're like me with these things. Now you realize, I think we're in a romance movie too. I think we're in a romance movie, and and in that, listen, we know. I am a giant girl on the inside for these things. I love this stuff. I love a good romance movie. I do. I love a good well done romance in a movie. And realize this is a man with a broken heart who doesn't want a million women, just wants one. It's like,
oh yeah, it gets to you just like there's so many aspects of his character that they just get thrown at you in such a great way. Like, and it's very subtle. Certain things, like he's trying to quit smoking. He's a military man. He's somewhat jaded from his past. He's no nonsense. There's so much information that you get about him in just like one scene, and that makes him such a great character.
The matches.
Yes.
Matches.
Yeah. Yep.
There is the setup.
Yep. More
that is the most bold-faced Chekhov's gun that I've seen in a very long time.
He just takes. Okay, I'm just gonna come back. And I honestly, one of my favorite moments in the entire movie is when after he's gonna leave the apartment, and the crazy junkie is outside with the hat thing. I love that whole thing, and I gotta believe when Bruce Willis starts to smile and goes, "Nice hat." I gotta believe that he broke. And they decided to keep that cut because it was just too good. You like it?
Well, that continuation of the scene also is doing so many different things. It's not just comedic relief. It's not just, world building when it comes to this seems to be a regular occurrence, but it also is demonstrating his skills, his weapons collection, setting up his
arsenal that he made.
That move with the gun, boom.
I hated this side so much. When he holds his pistol out and he's got like the gangster friggin'
but it's a space gun. It's a futuristic gun. It's okay. There it is. It's give me the cash. I love that whole scene. It makes me laugh every time. And then the guy just did a little dance. and then we move on. And then we get to the Mondo Chiwon coming in. They're coming in. Oh, actually, we already had that, the destruction, everything, where the Mondo Chiwon ship class. That was the previous scene. But now we get to the introduction of Lilu and the survivor. It's just the hand. And now this one thing, wow, it's just a hand. And you realize 300 years later, this is the level of technology that they've advanced to at this point. They can rebuild something. And I guess one criticism somebody might make criticism, how is it that she's still Lilu like that? And I would say supreme being, genetic memory. As long as one cell survives, I would believe that her creators would allow her entire existence to continue. She's a completely advanced, created specimen.
Well, it is the foundation of the Assassin's Creed franchise as well, is genetic memory in your DNA. And so I can see it. I actually see more the argument that she is a clone of the original with the memories of the original.
Either one could work. I think
either one can work. And it's fine being ambiguous about it, but it wasn't clear at first to me. Like that hand looked like one of the alien hands,
looked like a Mondo Chiwon hand.
So that's why I was confused at first when she came out.
Everybody was. We all were.
I thought it was going to be one of the aliens. And I'm not alone. This is a PG-13 movie, considering how much
boobies.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, you see that in the background.
It has to be in her contract. She's actually asked to be nude in movies before. I think she likes it.
Back in the day, young Mila, I'm okay with it.
It's pretty much, there were like, I think a minimum of 3 movies around the same time where when you first meet her character, she's just naked.
Yep.
It's hilarious to me.
No, it's just what she likes to do.
Yep.
Hey, listen,
I
no
respect her
shame.
for it.
No shame to Mila's game back
Yep.
in the 90s. Not at all.
It just surprises me that it's PG-13 in the
I know.
90s. If it were the 80s or the 70s, ratings were different back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's naked twice in the movie.
Three
times.
There's this thermal bandages, which is a lingering shot.
Right.
I just want to take some pictures for the archives.
It's so good. I
the
love that
archives.
so much.
And then when she gets changed in Vito's apartment,
They really do make her perfect.
and then after auto wash,
Did they show anything? I knew she got undressed, but I didn't.
It was
see
blurred.
anything.
It was blurred.
Okay.
You're slightly out of focus because you're focused on the men who, all the men are gentlemen. They all turn around, but it's all of them.
Bruce Willis is usually a gentleman, except for when he tries to pull a Snow White.
Nah. Seno Octo Gamma, never without my permission. Yeah, it was a bad idea.
I was surprised, like when I recently watched it for this again. That's totally the reason why it wasn't, because I just love watching it. Seeing it blurred in the background, like you do see nipple for both. Like when they turn around, they do make her perfect. Like
I'm looking, yeah, of course.
Well, you see it, yeah,
every time.
And
it's so, So we get the introduction of Lilu, and as far as a character introduction, once again, every character introduction in this movie to me is spot on, because you get everything you need to know, and you get Lilu brought back to life. Her body in that moment, Mila doing perfect body art of her organs reacting to air and her brain turning back on, completely shocked by her surroundings. And her how do I put this? Her alien gibberish. I love it. I love it. The language of creation, I believe, is what Vito calls it. Language of creation. And she starts rambling and babbling, and everybody has no idea. They're all confident. It's fine, it's that. But then in that moment, when he says, if you want to get out of here, gotta work on your communication skills. And it's unbreakable. That's unbreakable glass. Don't worry. No, right away. We're dealing with a superhuman individual. And this is where, in 1997, in the 80s and 90s, early 2000s, we never questioned these types of situations. We never complained, oh, it's a 90-pound girl kicking all kinds of ass, because in these types of situations, they made it legitimate.
Yeah, they explained it.
Yeah. She is 200,000 mammo groups, not human, completely alien. Punching through the glass makes perfect sense. And we don't question the rest of the movie that 100-pound Mila Jovovich is kicking ass the rest of the way, because she is supreme being.
Right.
Unlike, go ahead.
Sorry. They even call back to it, like when her demeanor instantly changes. There's a couple things that
animalistic stare when she
and not
walks
even
in
just
on
that. They give you the audio cue where she's built from so many different mammals, and instantly, like, she understands what that guy is doing. Just like completely being an ass, and it flips that switch. But then the audio cue of, oh, she's channeling her animalistic abilities just with like the jaguar type noise that you're hearing sounds. And it's again with the foreshadowing. This movie, I feel like, foreshadows so much. And I just lost my train of thought. It was Oh yeah, her ability. So she is speaking this gibberish, doesn't know what's going on around her, and just seeing what she's seeing in that room. And then he does that, and you can just see that she just understood him without understanding him fully. And then she's just so quick to learn her surroundings and understand what's going on in it. Later in the movie, she's able to just go through like the microfiche type of fast learning. It's such a
that's her brain can assimilate the information. That's why she can just watch Bruce Lee's mannerisms and
Mm-hmm.
tattoo it to muscle memory on her. And we don't question it.
Yeah.
Because they give us the setup that she's not
Right.
human. We are not. It's an era where we weren't worried about tiny little girl beating up big men because
Mm-hmm.
it's a science fiction setting. It's a science fantasy setting where we accept it and we just roll with it and we're in for the ride. And like you said, one of my favorite moments in that scene is after she's crawled out of the glass and she says something. I love the camera effect of where her eyes are just darting from her point of view. She's visually calculating everything and what's a threat, this, that, and then she's I'm going out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm bailing. I'm bailing.
Yeah.
And Jed, did you like her introduction to Corbin when she landed?
Uh-oh.
No.
No.
In retrospect, when the scene actually happened, totally fine. I have a massive problem with coincidences in movies. There are acceptable ones, there are unacceptable ones.
Right.
My problem is if this were just the inciting incident of involving Corbin in the movie, inciting incidents being coincidences, totally fine. That's how he's a part of the movie. Great. No problem there whatsoever. But that is retroactively undone by the fact that he's the one person that the government can trust to go on that mission anyway. So he already has a relationship with her. So he's already up to date on everything that's going on. Like, either introduction for his character is great. Either she falls into his cap, that's how he becomes part of the movie, or they come to his apartment and enlist his help. Them both existing in the story is just too massive of a coincidence, and it breaks immersion for me. It is my least favorite part of the movie.
Okay.
It's going to drop significant points in my overall score because of that. Because they just can't both exist. She falls into the one person's car who is going to be instrumental in what the government wants to do and what everyone else wants to do.
But that's where I would lean into the fantasy aspect. It's fate drawing them together.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm not.
They only go so far with the fate and destiny stuff. They mention that this is a cycle, but they don't talk about fate and destiny to a strong degree, especially when it comes to the priest. He doesn't think everything's going to play out in a certain way according to prophecy.
Well, that's not what I mean. I mean the fact that he is connected to what's going on because the incident he had a nightmare about the incident of Mr. Shadow coming to our world, and Lilu is of course the weapon. Therefore, you could call it headcanon. You could call this headcanon. This is just my interpretation of it. They were being drawn together by these events. So I thought you were going to take issue with her diving off the building. I thought you.
She's superhuman. He caught her before she landed. No, that's totally fine. No, it's just the coincidence of him being there and him being the exact person that the government was going to enlist in the end. Like, I'm fine with either one being the case. They just can't both coexist for me.
Okay, see, I can understand it, but in the end, I'm relying on that these are the forces of this universe making sure that both these people who are connected to this in some fantastical manner are going to get together. And
the movie would need to go into that. I can see that headcanon, and I can see that being the explanation, but the movie in no way even addressed, oh my God, this is weird. What could have caused this? Like, even Corbin doesn't realize, oh my God, this is weird. I am the one person in the city that she fell into my cab. And as Andy's saying in the chat, it is required for the plot to progress. And I find that as lazy. If this massive, unbelievable, unexplainable coincidence is the only way for plot progression, then you need to write something better.
All right, I can considering I understand how your brain works with all this stuff, I can understand why that's sticking.
Brain works.
At this point, it's been long enough. I can understand the point. But Gal, are you like me? Are you okay with it?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I mean, and that maybe Jed is less of a romantic than the both of us. I feel like it's a vehicle for their romance.
Yes, she falls into his life, and it's love at first sight.
Well, and he calls to it later when he's talking about it. Like, she just dropped into his life. I can't remember exactly
when he's talking to fingers.
Yes.
You ding the fender. You ding the goddamn fender. And it's like, I had a really big fare. 5'9". Big fare fell in my lap.
We'll get to that actually. But yes.
But here's the thing. I'm okay with it. Once again, people maybe complain, oh, she just dove off the building, not doing anything. Superhuman. She probably would have found a way to land and like do some acrobatics, be fine. Landing there.
At that point, they haven't explained how superhuman she is. Like I find that completely believable within the framework that they've established for her.
It's a classic shot. I mean, I already put it away.
The one shot I've really seen before.
It's the new
watching the film.
When I've had that Blu-ray that I got recently, my upgrade finally. It's been on my wish list for a long time, and it's gone through several different covers. And the Flying Leap just now happens to be the cover that it's on now. So it's an iconic moment. Hell, when on the original opening for this show in its previous incarnation, I had that scene. That scene, I had her going while she said Lilo Dallas Multipass. I had it in there. I've since changed it because we brought in the show, but it is an iconic scene, and it leads to one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie, the car chase. Go ahead.
Real quick, I just wanted to mention, like, it's going to be very similar where it's my own headcanon, but it kind of leads to kind of the balance of the both of you. When you did the Captain Planet, like, what's the fifth element, Adam? Heart. And then what's Jed's? And they go hand in hand. And my headcanon with it is all of his life choices led to these moments. Mm-hmm. He was in the military, former military, so that's his background. But it kind of, I feel like it leans towards the destiny prophecy type of stuff. And it actually makes me wonder every time before this, what is the fifth element? Is it love? Is it life? Is it a combination thereof? Is it just Lilu? Or is it Lilu and past iterations of her combined with an outside source to show that... to bring that together,
because nobody knows how it works at this point.
Yeah,
in the present, there's no idea. And here's something I always had a theory of, and this just might be me watching this movie for 20 years more. Is Corbin a descendant of Billy? I've always wondered that. It's just something. Is he a descendant of Billy? Because Billy wasn't killed by the Montezuma. It's just something I put in my head. I've always wondered that. Maybe somebody has that thing. But you get this whole scene, the introduction. It's that whole instant connection they have, and he is smitten, and she is just happy to find somebody receptive. She instantly her hyper instincts realize this is somebody who I can trust, even though he's going to steal a kiss from me in about 20 minutes. And then you get the whole thing. Please help. And it's suddenly there's, and Jed, I know you can appreciate this compared to Modern Day Stormly, the juxtaposition. She's already established strong female character, but suddenly trapped, please help.
Yeah, she's not above asking for help.
Yeah, because in this moment, suddenly she realized she's overwhelmed. And
there's not enough around her for her to know what to do.
Trapped in the back seat of a cab with cops and guns, she's got nowhere to go. She's got nowhere to go.
And she's desperately looking around for those cues to pick up on. How do I get myself out of this? And there's nothing beyond that
just please help.
Yeah.
And then I love every bit of camera work in this where he's telling her I can't help you, and then you see him prop down his rearview mirror and it's just his eyes looking. Everything about it's built up, and then it leads to one of my favorite scenes in the movie, which leads to a quick soundtrack story I want to talk about. Car chase. I love the car chase. It's so good. It's so well choreographed. Dialogue is. There are certain lines that I use all the time. People may not catch it in passing, and I love that track. That I guess it's a Middle Eastern track. I would say, but here's the thing. Way back in the day, we had these things called CDs, and we would buy them. Yeah, little discs. They look like our Blu-rays, but they were called CDs, and they just had music on them, okay? And back in, I would say, the early 2000s, I finally got around to buying the Fifth Element soundtrack because I was like, oh man, I'm making a CD collection. This is great. I'm building my CD collection. And I got it. Guess which the one track I wanted the most wasn't on it. This one. My favorite track in the movie wasn't on it. I don't know if I got some wrong edition. I don't know if it was some version after that, but it wasn't on it. And I was pissed off.
You didn't.
I still listen to the CD over and over again. Don't get me wrong, but I was angry, and I love this soundtrack. Now, the rest of the soundtrack is this great soundtrack. It's got a very unique, unique sound to it. But so the whole thing is great, and it has some of my favorite lines where after they've gone through where, and let's be honest, there's several things I want to note in the car chase scene. One, McDonald's wins the franchise wars in this history line, not Taco Bell. McDonald's.
I was thinking the same thing. And that's a McDonald's I would gladly go to.
Yes.
The sex appeal of the future is one of its few redeeming qualities for that society.
I want to know what that golden box
golden menu, one golden menu. Hey, she's the golden menu. Okay. She's the golden menu. But it survived franchise wars, and no automated kiosks there. McDonald's of the future understands sex sells. We're gonna
maybe I should cosplay the workers at some point,
or the flight attendants,
Yes,
both outfits work.
Valid.
Both outfits work. So I love how the cops were basically not going to bother because it was lunchtime, and they were
things haven't changed throughout the years.
No
type of
and then because it's a brilliant case of world building, like what you're talking about with the cops. I love the car chase mainly because of the world building. Just little moments
and
like
let's
that.
talk about that. With the car chase, you get a more world building. I want to quickly talk about the world building of this movie. It's in bits and pieces. You get very little overview, and you have to pay attention to the dialogue and the conversations and the pieces to understand that, okay, we have the federated colonies, which is Central Earth, but when you get to the Grand Ole Opry remake on
Lost in
Paradise, thank you. I wanted to say Florin for some reason. I don't know why. Lost in Paradise, you see there are other humans there that clearly have other civilizations in the galaxy, like the Emperor and his whore daughter. They clearly are some other ruling party. And so you get little bits and pieces here. You understand also there are other alien races, because one time Ruby says, I've never heard this way about a human. So Ruby gets it on with anything. And you understand you get once you realize New York, this is New York City. It's a megalopolis at this point, and clearly they did the Jetsons thing where they just kept elevating higher and higher because the smog at the lower levels. You understand that, but then you only get one shot of New York when they're leaving New York Spaceport. You get one grand shot of it, and
it's a great shot.
It's a really beautiful shot.
I don't want to hurt anyone, but I actually found out yesterday who the Jetsons were, so I got that reference as of yesterday.
That's a dermy point on you now. That's a dermy point. You understand that, don't you? That's a dermy point.
I don't know enough to care.
You hurt my soul.
See, that's the same reaction she does to dermy. So you understand I'm right in saying that. Everybody who knows. That's the same reaction.
I mistakenly thought it was the Flintstones. When someone said the Jetsons, I'm like, well, that's a caveman one, right?
It happens.
Same universe.
Yes.
No.
They so leaned into that too.
Yeah,
like
they did. Yeah,
it's so good.
There's a lot of references to pop culture, previous things in this movie when you catch them. They're all there. But the world building is all there. It's little bits and pieces, and I appreciate it. Even though one of my criticisms, I do want more. I want to understand what this world really looks like.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of glad I don't know, because they might have ruined it if they'd ever done a sequel, which they didn't do.
Just don't even put that out there.
Yeah, I know. Well, you remember
possibility.
They were talking remake last year. You remember that? Whispers of remake were out there last year.
No,
they were out there.
Not allowed.
Yeah, not allowed. Anyway, I've lost my train of thought. Anyway, all right. So we're up to clearly today, guys. We're walking through the movie because it's one of those ones. We're walking through the movie.
I have something real quick.
Go ahead.
So in the car chase scene with the cops, I always wonder, and I love that I wonder this. He says that line where we got lucky. If they don't follow you after like a mile or
maybe it's 2 miles.
They don't follow you at all. Yeah. But are they following because you just ruined this man's lunch? And how determined
No, they're following
because
they ruined the lunch. They
like,
followed- no,
and I
that's it,
love
that's
that,
it,
and it's
that's
such
it.
a simple thing because it's like these cops are clearly, you know, there are certain things that just never change.
That's part of the world building thing. This is the federated colonies. It sounds like they're a little dictatorial, even though they have a president.
There's a commentary with this about military and government. I feel,
and because the cops are essentially soldiers in this, and they, I mean, you're in your
and
room.
they're for sale. What's his bucket? Zorg uses them at one point in the film.
Yeah.
Yep.
And in everybody's room, to put your hands on the yellow circles. This is a police inspection.
And they're also used
I'm
to
a meat
it.
popsicle.
Yeah, popsicle. Okay, one of the most famous lines in the movie. Sir, are you human? No, I am a meat popsicle.
And the deadpan delivery,
Mm-hmm.
it's so good.
That's Bruce Willis. That's Bruce Willis. That's Bruce Willis.
And it's like a comedic moment that is just
but so we now move on to the part where we've seen him for a couple seconds, and now with the whole dropping off of Lilu at the apartment, and then after that, we're gonna get our full introduction of Zorg. Gary Oldman.
Yes.
The man just goes full hillbilly supervillain camp. And I love it. Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg.
Well, you just get this feeling. So the whole, we've got to lay off 500,000 people.
1 million.
It's in one tiny little line. He delivers his evil
and the look
character arc.
Just looks at that poor little scrub. Goes, "It's 1 million, sir. Whoop, I'm gone."
Right.
And
it's just like fire 1 million. And then, he's so scared. He's just like 500,000. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's just so good.
And he's on his way to picking up the stones from the Mangalores, from Agnot, who killed him on the Chi ones, and that whole scene. Because then, of course, we get that scene, which leads to Bring Me the Priest. But that is also a fan favorite scene, the weapons demonstration. Of the ZX, I don't remember its name. I never remember that thing's name. That thing has appeared in other science fiction too. That gun, it has been reused just because it's a glorious little thing. But all Zorg oldies but goldies. The flamethrower, my favorite. It's
so good.
Gary Oldman. This is why you love Gary Oldman. He is one of those guys that can transform himself into another character.
The man deserves many Oscars.
Yes, and so he makes the movie fun because he is Jed, good guys and bad guys. There's no gray area. We've got our heroes and we've got a villain, a dyed-in-the-wool, quote him, killer, which he loves. It's great. I know you commented, Jed, how you felt it was a little over top though, but you gotta love Gary Oldman overall in this. You gotta love him.
Yes, he is an incredible actor. So there are, of course, moments that I enjoy, and I realize it's purely subjective when I say that it didn't work for me, but plenty of other people, I can see why people love his performance in the movie. So of course I can't fault the film for doing something that doesn't personally work for me. I do have some issues with his writing, especially the inconsistency of his power and influence. Like one moment he's weaponizing an entire police force and he's showing how little 500,000 to 1 million jobs are, yet he needs what's his bucket, Corbin's tickets to get to the pleasure yacht, and then at the end he doesn't need it and he can just show up and they let him on anyway.
I think he was trying to do it subtly. I think he was trying to be subtle because he realizes there was after the fiasco at the airport. He realizes,
I mean, he can't buy his own tickets though.
They were sold out though.
He's he can,
with his power, I can see what Jed is saying.
Power and influence. I see as inconsistent, and with how many henchmen he could have, because he weaponizes an entire police force. He doesn't bring anyone with him to the pleasure yacht at the end.
He weaponizes it, but he does it through subversion. He doesn't actually buy off the police. He does it through phoning in a terrorist threat.
He only really has one actual henchman, and as soon as that guy's gone, he's on his own, and that just feels weird with how.
Well, he says the line, you want something done right, you do it yourself.
Exactly. That was going to be my point. Like, he's fed up at this point.
Yeah, he can be fed up and go personally to do it. I just don't believe he would go without any backup. I can see him doing it himself, but having 10 guys
I'm
with
gonna
him.
disagree. I think at that moment he is so dissatisfied with everybody else's screw ups that he's like, "Screw it, I'm doing it myself." Because because remember, that point in the movie, he is being motivated by fear. He's got the fear of Mr. Shadow in him,
And
he's desperate by the
make
end,
him
though.
try like all hands on deck. I see him going overboard and going all hands on deck. Like at this point, the level of power and influence he has to where he's even, bugging the president, bringing a warship in to just threaten the hell out of that cruise liner and just dominate it. That's what's been set up as him having that capability. So I just see it's very inconsistent.
I don't know about that. I feel like his pressure is economic, not military force. It's economic.
Well, and economic at a certain point can translate easily into any other
military
avenue.
force.
Yeah, just like he used economic power to weaponize the police force.
I just
go ahead.
he's very desperate by the end. Like you can tell, especially when he opens the chest again and they're not there, and he just starts like,
that's that beautiful continued. It's a joke, but it works. Every time somebody opens the box, they think the stones are in it.
It's always empty.
And that
I see that as being a detriment, though. His desperation. In his desperation, he decides to go alone. Him going is fine. In his desperation, absolutely, him going himself. But he's so desperate that he handicaps himself.
I don't feel like it was a handicap because with just one thing, he could easily slip in and get the stones. Because I feel as though his desperation is the fact that he can only rely on himself at this point. He trusts nobody else.
Right.
He's the only one that can get this shit done. And to me, I'm sold. I am sold on it. I understand your criticism. But
it's just throughout the film an inconsistency on his abilities, his influence, his power, his decision making. He's just not only schizophrenic in his portrayal, schizophrenic in what he possesses. And
they don't really establish it. So like I'm not a full balance between the two of you, but I do understand what you're saying because there are some inconsistencies in they allude too much to what his power is.
Exactly.
Because like, okay, so he's this guy that oversees all of these companies, but then also he has these abilities to weaponize the police force. Like, where does it begin and end? And it's a little too vague with that. I do agree with that.
That's where a little more world building would have been good.
Yeah.
And that's why I say one of my criticisms is I want more world building. I'd like to know what the shape of this of the federated colonies are. How powerful is Zorg? But for me, as I said, I'm okay with understanding his reach is mostly financial. He can that's how he manipulates things. Or
what about the tickets?
Information.
Why is Corbin's ticket his only possibility?
I'm gonna go with what the movie tells me. There aren't any left. They're all gone. And he never planned on going there. So
there's the matter of, what if there are other winners? Just buy the tickets off someone. Or
here's the thing. Everybody's kind of already there.
Someone.
This movie takes place over a 48-hour period. So I would say that everybody who had a ticket, with the exception of the one connected to the contest, which established early movie. It's not something that they pulled out of the ass to give to Corbin. It was established when Corbin woke up that morning, and we heard Ruby's ad for it on the radio. So I would say that all the tickets that, with the exception of that last flight leaving New York for that Corbin is on, they're gone.
I might have missed it, but didn't they say that Zorg was part of the funding for Ruby's radio show?
I never heard that. That would be news to me. I never picked that up.
And my understanding was like the government is the one that actually started and rigged it.
Rigged it.
No. The contest existed, then they rigged the contest. They used that as the vehicle to get Corbin to Floston inconspicuously.
But it is like a last minute thing. So, and this is where I lean more towards what Adam is saying. Like, you're getting there right when it's leaving. So, like, this contest was supposed to be like the last tickets for it. So Zorg didn't really have that information yet.
And it was also garbled because the cockroach was. That's funny. The whole cockroach scene. It's just getting
so
a little
weird,
but it's funny because I love it when he smashes it. Because like, I love that. There's little moments because
it's the weird little things that I love.
It's just like we're gonna start jumping around now because we're over an hour, and I wanna get through it. But there's when Corbin drops off Lilu. There's never without my permission. Do you have any idea where she's coming from? Yes, I was there when she landed. It's all the little things. Weddings. No. Is that they use that? Not really.
And then again the second time.
Yes. But to round this out, let's just talk about a few of the best scenes now. Zorg and Vito, Ian Holm and Gary Oldman just acting in that scene, just portraying these characters perfectly, and the dichotomy of the two sides, chaos versus order, or one saying chaos begets order, the other one saying your chaos is nothing but destruction that doesn't bring life. I love that scene. And then that slight little comic where he's choking on the cherry. And he has to knock it out there. And then you're a monster, Zorg. I know. To me, it's well put together. And it just says it's two characters who it's the only time Zorg interacts with anybody of the main party. Except for Lilu. I'm sorry, Lilu, but he shoots out of that. Because one of the things I love is that Zorg, even though Zorg is basically something that's kind of ruining Corbin's life, Corbin is fired because of him.
Yeah.
Corbin has to deal with all this extra shit because of the events Zorg's pulling. Zorg and Corbin never actually see each other. And they do in that one, they almost do the elevator when they're escaping the hotel, and the wolf howl, because I love that piece of soundtrack. They cross each other. They don't see it. I just love it. That scene is great. In the office. Jed, I saw you wincing though when I said that.
Oh, the chair scene, I love the writing of it, like the dialogue of it, especially Ian Holmes's portrayal. I think the cherry thing is a little too cheesy for me personally. Just the fact that it happens. It's like, oh yeah,
it's his arrogance though.
I was just gonna say that. Damn it. Adam.
Go ahead, Gal, you go ahead and you say it.
Well, I was just gonna say he's just so arrogant that he is above everything. He's making all this technology for the betterment of the world. And
I love the scene, like the idea of the scene, but like, does he choke all the time?
Well, no, that was I think that's that moment of arrogance.
Personally,
I don't think it's coincidence. I think it's just him going, I'm on top of the world, and he's so cavalier in that moment that he thinks he's won.
And he wouldn't choke all the time, right? Because like no one questions him.
And in that moment, it was a moment of flair. He did that in a moment of flair to intimidate Vito with what he was saying. Yeah. So he didn't calculate, maybe I shouldn't swallow this water with the cherry in it whole. And that's the whole point of the conversation. You're so inflated with your own ego that you didn't account for one little cherry.
And that's such a real life situation too. Like there's many times where I've been in that situation where I'm being a cocky little shit and then something happens and I slip up. And I've also been on the opposite side where someone's being a cocky little shit. And sorry, I keep forgetting. Is it okay?
You can say shit. You can say shit.
Oh yeah, fuck that shit.
Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah. But like we've all been in like okay, I might be assuming I've been in these situations where I was the one being the cocky person, and then I've also been, that's what you get. So that's I love that.
And it's great, and that's fantastic. And I love that scene because you got, as Chad is saying, two great actors just playing off each other. Once more, without them in there, I don't think, without Oldman Holmes, it doesn't work. They make that scene. Yeah.
Holmes in general is my favorite part of the movie because I've never seen him in even a slightly comedic role. Like I've really only ever seen him, at least to my memory, in Alien and Lord of the Rings.
5 million times you watched Alien this year.
Yeah, it's been a lot. It has been a lot. I did finally watch Alien versus Predator, though, and I regret that. Not as much as I regret watching Covenant and Prometheus. Prometheus and Covenant.
I was gonna say it's better than those. So.
Yeah. I might rather watch the Disney trilogy of Star Wars.
I would. Like I said, Alien vs. Predator. The book is actually good, and the comics are good, but the movie is terrible.
AVP is a guilty pleasure for me.
Yeah. I accept. I'm in the major.
It pulls elements from the book, but it doesn't get it right.
I realize I'm 100% in the minority, but there's only one Alien film to me.
He is one. He likes Alien better than Aliens.
Well, there is only one Alien.
Yeah, but
the first one, and then there's Aliens.
The better one.
I see what you did there. But yeah, no, I thought
Getting
Aliens
off track
was fine.
Getting off track. We'll review that someday, and we'll give Jed a chance to break it apart. Anyway,
Yes.
next scene I wanted to. Jed mentioned it, the congregation of all the major parties in Corbin's apartment when Lilu and Vito come to steal his tickets with the gun. Everything about that is just fantastic. People lie. Everything is fun. They try to convince you. Oh, you're here to save the planet. Okay, but before that, when General Monroe and his fat Princess Leia, an Asian dude, come in there, that is just perfect. Shoving them into the freezer. You know, we don't fit. Sure, you will.
He has to like force it in. Yeah.
And then after Lilo and then you get hands on there, meat popsicle. It's smoke you. Wrong answer. Everything is glorious. And then you get within all of that, it's a lot of comedy, a lot of interchange. We get that one sensible moment. Auto wash. The second time I've had you in my arms today. And she's shivering.
Auto wash.
Cornelius. And then she goes auto wash. It's that second act moment where she's learning English.
Yeah.
It just repeats words all the time. It's funny as hell.
It's
but
so
then
simple.
At least one of my favorite physical comedy moments is in this scene though. While he's talking about coffee, let's drink a lot of coffee, Surprise. Corbin turns his back. Vito sees the tickets, grabs it, takes his medal of his trophy, and when he wallops Corbin, Bruce Willis' reaction, I laugh every time because it's just
like
people forget that Bruce Willis can do physical comedy. They forget that, and it's like, it makes me laugh every time. And I love that entire scene. Jed, you mentioned earlier you really like that whole scene, right?
Oh yeah, just the shuffling around with people. We'd already established the geography and the layout of the room, so we could see the foundation of all this. Nothing was really surprising, but it was interesting. The one thing is that fridge is massive. I don't know how much food that one man needs.
Right?
I did have a question that could slightly hurt the scene for me, but there was a moment where I wasn't paying attention, so I'm not going to that point yet. How much time was between him leaving Lilu at the priest's apartment, the government deciding we need Corbin, and Corbin with the Asian guy getting his food? How much time passed in that?
I would say about 2 hours.
2 hours?
It's a couple hours. It's a couple hours.
At least in that part, it just felt super rushed that everyone in the world immediately knew he had the tickets and all went for him simultaneously.
Well, that's because it was on the radio. They were blasting his name on the radio.
Like the timing of it, they announced his name, yes, and then he's already got the tickets, and everyone's already there and ready to pounce. If it's only 2 hours, that seems.
They as soon as they decided to do it, they rigged it. It was on the radio, and he first hears about it.
They also rigged it very quickly.
Well, that's government. Hey, it's government. Hey,
and
there you go.
And the competition, did you have to input for it? Like was like a raffle that he would have had to manually add his name to?
Right, like how did he win?
Well, they did show that he did eat croquettes because we saw a box in his fridge early on in the movie.
Yeah.
So he does.
That's how he. Okay.
He didn't enter. No, he didn't enter at all. They just took his military name and record and shoved it in there. It was complete rigging. There was no legitimacy to that at all. He wasn't even part of it.
With how the police department, as we saw with the McDonald's scene, they don't care about anything. The fact that they mobilized as quickly as the aliens, as quickly as the priests, as quickly, it's just all these people showing up at exactly the same moment.
No. They weren't going after him for the ticket. They were going after him because Zorg said that's a terrorist threat, and that's why they were.
Right. That's the lie that they told him, but Zorg was doing that to get his ticket. So ultimately it was for the ticket. They just didn't know the truth.
Yeah.
But it was just, if it's only 2 hours, that's a lot to happen in 2 hours.
Hey, it's the future, man. You saw the mail; it's got the tubes. It arrives quickly. That shit happens fast. It's over.
I love one phone call, and
I love the Asian food delivery guy. That whole bit was fun, and how he just like comes up to their windows, drops off the food. That bit of world
and he's in like a ship thing.
It's a rickshaw.
And I love the delivery of the line. You are fired, because he's so like they bet his meal type thing.
It was great. So I do love the scene. It's just that
Right.
whole sequence.
Legatus says it was 2 hours 6 minutes. That's what he says.
Isn't that the runtime of the movie?
No. Was that the runtime of the movie? Because
it was just over 2 hours.
No, maybe Legatus is confused what we were saying. We're talking about how much time happened in that moment. I say it's been a couple hours based upon that kind of stuff. And either way, it was that scene is fun. And now that's it when they get on the ship after the whole spaceport scene with the garbage, which is good. It's good. But we're in the third act. We're in the third act. We're on Floston. We get introduced to Ruby Rod, Chris Tucker, and his over the top, his crazy hairdos, his obviously metrosexual style, but a poon hound. I love it. Super green. Again, that's something
so
that's
over the top.
That again, green has because of Fifth Element, green entered our pop culture zeitgeist as saying, yeah, you green, super green. And entered. I use it all the time. I use it. I do it. It's great. I love that moment though, after the whole Corbin is introduced to Ruby and he goes through the whole stupid thing and they have a moment alone. He's trying to chastise Corbin like he can push this guy around. I'm Ruby Rod. I can push a peon around. And then Corbin goes, can we talk about something? And then just grabs him by the neck, shoves him into the wall. And it shows you that Corbin may be a little stronger than we know as well because he lifts him off the floor and they make a note to show you he's at least 4 to 5 inches off the floor there.
Yeah.
And that, I love that moment. It's like, I love that Corbin's like, I'm on a mission. You're going to shut up, you silly little man.
I don't have time for your crap.
Like, yeah. Yet then we get on the departure scene is also filled with so many good moments. Ruby screwing the flight attendant, just completely telling us, yeah, this guy he's horny. Corbin trying to talk to Lilu. Lilu basically saying, me fifth element, supreme being, me protect you. And she's not affected by the automated sleep. That's another thing that I always remark on. The Vito sneaking onto the plane. It's a great little scene. The two stoners who are in charge of putting the nuclear battery in the plane. It all is a nice little combination. All sets it up where we arrive at Floston and we're all players are in place. Zorg blows up his lackey and he says, I'm going to do it myself. And Floston, I think, is a fantastic setting for the third act on the hotel. Everything that goes down there. Let's talk about the opera scene and lead up build up. First of all, I like Lilu in this section because she goes off on her own, and it's the juxtaposition when we get to the opera of everybody explaining, understanding what they want, what they need, and the opera itself. Before the action scene, when she's solemnly singing that aria, Corbin entranced, Ruby entranced, Lilu looking longing. You can see that right there. All that you mentioned earlier, Guy, when she's absorbing all the stuff by watching everything. She's actually living at this point. Whereas I think we're kind of led to believe every time she's woken up out of stasis to do this throughout her existence, she gets woken up, she does her creation of light business, and they put her back to sleep for however period of time. It's not very long. She never actually lived. In this scant 48 hours, she has lived, possibly for the first time in her entire existence. And hearing that kind of sorrowful, enchanting music, you can see on everybody does a great job of emoting. It all comes out because she's standing there leaning up against the wall listening to it. And I love that moment of everybody reacting to the aria. And then we get action. Then the action portion of the movie kicks into gear.
Oh, well, before we move on to the action, I just want to mention that stuff with Leela is there's a little aspect of it that I found great from both a writing standpoint and a humor standpoint is when the singer's attendant tells her, you wait here. She takes it so literally. Like, I will stand in this exact spot for 5 hours. And that's, the mentality. Like, she is, virtually an infant when it comes to her development mentally. So, like, it makes perfect sense. Any other person would be like, all right, I'm going to wait in my room, wait till after the opera and come back. But she just is like, I'm not moving my feet.
Right.
I'm not going anywhere. And I love that little bit. They don't have to point it out. They don't even point it out. And I love that little bit.
And it was, as I said, it's a great setup. You see everybody's show don't tell emotions.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that so much. And then the action starts. Then the aria shifts into all that stuff, and we get Lilu kicking Mangalore ass, because then she remembers that they were responsible for the destruction of the Mondachi one, nearly murdering her as well.
Mhm.
And man, that all credit, because this is also kind of that period of time where Mila Jovovich became her little female action star status. She had the chops for it, and they proved it, and she did it, and she pulls off. It's a lot of fun. And I miss those days where I can see a scene like that and not, as I said earlier, question it, where I'm just sitting back and enjoying it for what it is.
Right. Like girl boss galore. And it was
Proper
built
girl
up.
boss.
Yes, exactly. Like what a girl boss used to be and should be. She's just the epitome of that.
Yeah.
And she just comes into her own in that moment. And the score behind it is the icing on the cake. It's I feel it's such a perfect arc for her.
Why I mentioned earlier, this is one of those movies where the soundtrack is intricate to every little scene. It is in the DNA of the movie. You cannot have these scenes without the soundtrack. It elevates it. It raises it higher. It makes it what it is. And, of course, the perfect timing. Dun, dun, dun. I mean, when Diva goes like this and then Lilu goes like this, like, yes, I have finished my performance.
Yes. I get chills.
But then, of course, we come down to earth because Zorg pops around. And Girl Boss kicking ass. Fine, physically, she's stronger, this and that, beat all the crap out of them. Their guns weren't working. Zorg's got a gun that works. And she just realizes it right away. I got to get the fuck out. And she gets hurt by it. She takes a couple winging shots that takes the wind out of her. Then the Mangalores attack, and you get Corbin doing a Bruce Willis thing. The one man army moment. It's well choreographed, even on my old edition, I can still spot the stuntman, and I hate it every time. Drives me nuts.
Yeah,
but I do it because what I hate the most is that you see the stuntman, but it's the Bruce Willis scream of his classmate. But it's the stuntman on the screen. It's like, no, I can see the stuntman. No, that whole thing. But leading up to that, where the diva says she needs your help and your love, and that's hammering it home. That this is more than just about her being a weapon. It's more than just about saving everything. It's about saving yourself. And him real that. Let me ask you about this. So I always wonder about this. I want to ask your opinion. How do you guys feel about the fact that the stones were inside her the whole time?
I knew it.
You know it?
The moment I saw her on stage, I knew they were inside her.
Really? Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
it's dumb. I don't know how it works. I mean, must be
alien.
Yeah, that's the only explanation I
You
could see.
but
it's still. As soon as I saw her, I'm like, oh yeah, the stones are absolutely in her.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And it's sad, but it's real. It drives it home that he just watched her perform this incredible piece of art, and then she dies in his arms. But either way, Ruby and Corbin throughout their fight. Do you guys have any remarks on the action set pieces? I love it. I think it's a classic shoot 'em up. It has a little bit of chaotic nature to it, where he dominates yet is trapped several times. A little comedy. Thanks, Ray.
I actually have a question for Jed.
Okay.
Do you know what American Gladiator is?
I've heard of it, but I definitely haven't seen it.
Dun.
So the weapon that they have, like the little mini rocket
grenade
launcher thing. Yeah, that's straight out of American Gladiator. I loved watching that show as a kid, and so you don't get that, and so that's why I asked the question. I was just like, do you know what it is? Say hi to my mom, everybody. When I was a kid, I was just like, hey, that's from American Gladiator.
So that whole
The set
thing,
piece.
that whole set piece is great.
Yes.
It has a little bit of edge to it in terms of he nearly dies a couple times. He talks his way out of it. Yet he dominates when he needs to. He fights tactically intelligent. Jedi, do you appreciate that he fights tactically intelligent in that whole fight?
Oh yeah, he's definitely taking advantage of, the landscape. It's one of those things that I call a dynamic fight scene where they incorporate the scene and the environmental storytelling. And I always love that. Modern fight sequences are so static. And so yeah, he's definitely strategic about it. And it was set up throughout the film that he has these expertise to make it make sense. Just like Lilu, just with her superhuman abilities, they properly foreshadow and set up his ability to totally decimate, because as the general said, he's one of the best fighters that humanity's produced at the time.
And we just gotta say, I gotta say, Chris Tucker is so goddamn annoying in the scene, though. So Ruby shrieking is just
yes,
but it's over the top. It's on character, over the top. The screaming, even when it's all over, and he's doing his show the whole time, is the funny part. It's the whole show, and
I feel like it's exactly how that character would in real life be. Like he's this metro dude that loves women, and that type of person in an actual serious moment is going to freak out the way that he does.
Come on, man. I feel right. I got a headache.
Come
on. The ugly. The big and the ugly.
Because if it's a bomb,
now Chris Tucker does a great job. Chris Tucker does a great job.
It's kind of the situation of Gary Oldman for me, where it's a bit much for me, and I just don't generally lead towards campy films.
But you accept it.
I do, absolutely. It is definitely what the film intended to be, and it was good for the film. It just is very subjective with me, where it doesn't work.
Your line earlier, they're not taking themselves seriously, and when you understand that, you can't really criticize it objectively, because they know what they're doing.
They lean into it so much.
They're giving him a giant penis hairdo on purpose.
Pompadour, whatever that's called.
That is a pompadour.
Yeah.
It's a serious pompadour, but it is very phallic at the same time.
Absolutely. Because that is what he is.
And it's great. And then, of course, the best thing, we're sending somebody in to negotiate. Mangalores won't fight without a leader. That they use that in one of the bits of later promotional material that you see for it afterwards, where they always use that part. We're sending, and he walks in, boom, gangs. And here's the thing you're saying. Agnot had been set up as a nice little thug foil. He's a boss. He commands. He has intelligence. And Corbin just walks right in, shoots him right between the eyes without blinking.
No nonsense.
No.
He's fed up with his life prior to this. Like, he doesn't have the time to care enough to actually negotiate. It is just on character for him.
And I love that it's orc rules. War boss dead. We give up.
Yep.
War boss is dead. We're done. Yep. It's over. It's done. It's over. Then I love that line. When Vito comes over, what did you expect that? Zoop! What are you doing now? Looking for Lilu. Lilu in trouble? When is Lilu not in trouble?
Yeah. And
he just sees her arm hanging out of the vent. He goes to get her, and then there's the great moment. Is that a bomb? It's not a bomb. It can't be a bomb. It's Corporal Man. Can you stop this? And this that moment looks at him. Bruce goes, eh. Then they're running for it. They're running. No, we can't stop this. And that once more, the juxtaposition of Zorg coming in as they're leaving. He just straight up ganks those poor security officers. Sir, there's a bomb on the hotel. I know. And he thinks he gets away with it. Zorg thinks he gets away with it. Whew. But then the Mangalores get their unknown vengeance on him.
Yeah.
And oh no. And then that's it. That's how Zorg goes out. And I love it. Our hero never actually puts his hands on the villain. Because once again, I state, Zorg is the villain, Mr. Shadow is the threat. And he never gets his hands on him. Doesn't even know he's the villain. Only Vito and Lilu sort of knows that Zorg is the villain. Corbin's just doing his job and trying to protect Lilu. That's all he's trying to do.
Well, and Zorg is also, he's Corbin's Mr. Shadow.
Yeah.
But Corbin doesn't even know it. Like,
Yep.
he has fucked up Corbin's life so much, and he has no idea.
Yep.
He's just there to be the no-nonsense hero type that is going to fix it some way, somehow. And
here's the final moments now, which are, to me, very powerful. Every time, I'm always riveted whenever I watch it. Lilu getting patched up by Corbin. He's asking her, how you doing? How you feeling?
Before we move on from Zorg's death,
okay, yeah.
I might have missed something, but I really wish there was actual setup for that second bomb that was there.
Well, they carried it in there. They carried it in there.
Right, but I just like they timed it for exactly virtually the same moment the other one was going to go off.
Well, he turned it. He turned the dial. The Mangalore who's dying, because we'd heard the countdown 5, and then it stopped. And the Mangalore who is dying says, "For the honor," and he turns the dial to 5 seconds. So I think that's close enough.
Then why did that happen at the same time then?
Right, like why are they linked? Because I've never understood
No, they weren't linked. That was a bomb. Oh, it was a separate bomb. 2 separate bombs.
Right, but the other Mangalore.
No. The Mangalore heard the countdown. The ship was counting down vocally, and then the Mangalore
was going to.
So that bomb is just
the Mangalore's brought that on themselves. Yeah, he activated it with it. He had the Mangalore is lying on the ground, goes for the honor, and he has a dial in his hand, and you see him turn it, and that activated the bomb.
So what's in his hand is a bomb?
No, it's a detonator. That was the detonator. And
But-
Zorg's bomb was that tiny little thing.
Right.
Zorg,
But
yeah.
did the ship stop counting down when Zorg disconnected his bomb?
Yes.
And the Mangalore recognized that?
Yes, he just.
Okay.
I would say there's enough evidence since you hear the ship counting down that he could then set it to 5 seconds. Just as I'm dying.
Just
I'm
while
setting
he's
it to 5
there.
seconds. Yeah, because the Mangalore heard it counting down. That's to me. There's
So
enough
it's separate.
evidence.
Okay.
If he was
Two
able
separate
to,
bombs.
If he was no, I know they're 2 separate bombs. If he was able to know and react that the other bomb was turned off, that was the thing I was worried about. Is he knows that other one's off, so he sets his to the same time. But with what you're saying, that makes sense.
There were the ship stopped counting down, and then he hears it, and then the way I look at it, he just turned it to the same exact time because I'm dying. I'm going to set it to 5 seconds.
Make sure that everyone dies. Like
yeah.
I guess I from my misunderstanding of it is I thought that they were the same bomb.
No.
And so that's why it always confused me. Okay.
No, they're 2 separate bombs. Zorg's
the one
was just
from
the tiny
Mangalore.
one, and the Mangalore
I don't know
was
how
a
that
giant
tiny one
hulking
could
thing.
blow up the entire ship.
Right.
But it was the timing aspect that was bothering me.
Technology.
Yeah.
It was the timing aspect that the other the Mangalore knew that it was all happening. But if the computer was counting down and suddenly stopped,
It was audible. It was audible. Yeah.
Yeah, if he reacted to that. I just didn't hear the computer stop. I thought it was still going.
It's as soon as Zorg puts the chip in, it stops.
It stops.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I think
then
even weren't there like there was an alarm sound with it. With
the computer,
countdown, and it stops.
the ship's computer was
Recognized
telling
that it was
everybody
disarmed.
what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, if it recognized that it was turned off, then that is set up in
Yeah.
a way that makes sense. Absolutely.
Now we go to the final setup here. We're on the Zorg ship, which has been commandeered by Corbin and crew, and he's talking to Lilu, and she's now. You can see that everything that's happened. She has the doubts.
Mhm.
He's asking her, "Where are you in your encyclopedia?" I'm up to V, and he's trying to get his emotion. Corbin doesn't have quite the ability to be that kind of emotive, so he's trying to tell her, "Very, very beautiful." There's a lot of good words in V, and she's questioning things. And then while he's on the phone with the president, the war thing. Now I knew I had a feeling you might question the war thing, Jed.
I have 2 questions about it.
Yeah.
There's no other bad words in an encyclopedia before W.
Yeah.
No,
Like
I think
bomb.
Well,
like
maybe
nuclear.
Well,
Destruction.
maybe. Well,
like Yahtzee.
Listen. All right, defend this. I'm gonna defend this. I was ready for this. I knew Jed was gonna comment on the war montage setting her off. One, of course, she probably saw the word bomb, but it's not in conjunction or connection to the war. Of course, you see nuclear. We've already seen nuclear is the primary energy that they're using. We saw it functions for the Starship power source, probably functions for everything power source, which means when she saw nuclear, if she went over it, and we're not saying maybe she didn't go over everything. She's high-speed learning here, high-speed assimilating information, didn't do detail, and she specifically types in war. because
she
all
had
the
just
events now.
experienced
Yeah.
like physical
Yeah,
fighting.
because she questioned Corbin a moment ago.
Yeah.
Why is it everything you humans do, everything you create, you destroy? He says human nature, and she doesn't understand that because she's not a human; she's a construct.
Right.
And now all that stuff has spurred her to look at what is war. And yes, do they show the same images over and over again as all the buildup see a nuclear explosion? Yes, and I just go back to what we talked about earlier. Visually, she's able to interpret everything, and there might have been, we were only looking at one section of the screen. There might have been words too. She might have been incorporating it all with her high-speed ability to assimilate information. So I think the impact all at once broke her in that moment, which Mila Jovovich does an excellent job of emoting that. The horror on her expression is great.
That was more. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Nope.
No, mine's a slight half change of subject. So you finish.
Okay. Well, so just to add a little bit more to it, like there's a difference between being book smart and street smart, like you're experiencing life versus reading about it. And I feel like some of that does come into play with it and why I accept it as well, because I did, even as a kid, I was just like, W's at the end of the alphabet. There's a lot of like bad things in
murder.
Yeah, exactly. But she came to her own, like I mentioned earlier, where she is fighting. She feels pain. She feels a sense of loss. Like she had given up. And then Corbin finds her, like she's dying, like that type of feeling, like she's actually experiencing it versus reading about it. And so she started thinking on those lines.
Remember what during the scenes during the battle, when you see her trapped in the air duct, she's going, please help, because she she's injured. She thinks the stone, she thought the stones were in the box too. She didn't know the stones were in Plava Laguna. And she thinks it's all over. She's now, she's as hopeless as Vito was back in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And she needs to be picked up and carried. And that's where Corbin comes into play. And that's the missing element there.
And all those emotions, kind of, especially as a woman, like this is also she's also a woman. So like when you're going through these emotions and everything's compounding, you just start to like be in your head more.
Wait,
like that's how I feel with that.
Are you telling us because because you're a girl?
Am I?
Do you understand? Yeah, are you?
Well, Adam identifies as a woman, so
only that one time.
I almost
only the one time.
This is gonna be my moment.
God damn it!
Am I a woman?
That was not my fault. I misspoke.
Did Corbin say the word war in that conversation?
No, he did not.
I think that would have helped a lot because we know she was going through the
why did she
encyclopedia, but it kind of went all over the place in the previous stuff. Like it wasn't always ABC.
She was jumping around.
So I think if he had said the word war and she'd be like, war, what is war? And then she specifically looks it up, I'm all good with that. But it is implied that
she already knew about destruction, so she obviously had seen the word war, but she hadn't seen about it. She probably knew what war was, but she needed to see human history of war up to that
history of the word.
And that's what that was. She saw all the horrible things, and that's why when they get to Egypt and kind of wimpy priest little boy has already set everything up for them. Everything's ready, and here comes Mr. Shadow, and everybody. I'll see it'll hit Earth in 1 hour, 56 minutes. I'll call you back in 2 hours. I love that. That's just confidence right there.
It's so good.
It's confidence, and they have that whole thing.
Jed was gonna bring something up earlier when we were.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So it is in tandem with that Lilu stuff and I have a headcanon explanation that I'm okay with. But when we see Corbin pick her up in the hotel room after she's been shot, she's obviously very injured, barely in, needing help, whatnot. And then in the spaceship, she seems to be, yes, she's injured, but she's relatively fine. And then she's dying again.
I was ready for this too.
Let him do his headcanon.
Okay, I was ready for this though.
I assumed that as something to do with the proximity of the shadow was damaging her psyche.
That I don't know about. I thought you were going to talk about her injuries.
Yeah.
I was totally fine with her being okay on the ship because she probably has fast healing stuff.
I was going to say the movie's already exhibited that all the injuries she suffered when the escape from the cops, they were cured like 20 minutes later. She's got rapid healing.
I'm okay with that, but then they undo that, and when they get to the temple, she's dying again. It's like, she's terrible. She's dying. She's totally
no. She wasn't dying. She wasn't dying. She was weak because I think
Mhm.
she had given up. She had lost all hope.
I was just gonna say she's
But-
given up and lost
She's
hope
given up,
mentally.
but she have struggle speaking. She wouldn't have struggle.
Because I think it's the the way I look at it is her injuries, physical injuries, were taken care of. It's
Mhm.
a
I can see
spiritual
that.
thing because
Yeah.
she says so. Why should I do this anymore? Especially in the moment when they finally got the stone to activate. That scene's great. A lot of fun
Mhm.
with that. Let's get to the core thing. Lilu, I need you to work, honey. It's time for you to work. Why should I do this? What's the point of all this?
It's definitely like a mental and emotional thing
Yeah.
for like that's how I take it too.
Yeah.
That she's
Showing it very physical though. Like she can't even
Right.
speak. Even what she wants to say, she can't.
So I'm actually gonna bring this back to being a woman, and that's one reason why I love her character, because she's like this supreme being, but she is also a woman. Like in the beginning, they reference, I can't wait to meet him, and I'm not using this as an excuse to be weak, by the way, just because she's a woman. This is the reason, but at the same time, it is a factor. Like they emphasize the fact that she is a woman, and everybody thought she was a guy. It like when a woman, like I've personally been through this, so like maybe I'm just putting my own life experience on things. Like when I mentally am at a state of giving up, like I curl up into a ball and cry in the shower. I cannot stand the weight that I'm feeling upon my shoulders, so much so that I can't stand. Like
I think it's a common. I think that's a fair thing, and I think I'm going with my thing. She is spiritually and mentally broken at this point because she feels like her entire existence is pointless because humanity has, in this brief experience for 48 hours, have had highs and lows, but the lows are so damaging to her psyche about why am I saving all this? Why am I saving life? Even humanity, all these aliens, the Mangalores, everything. You destroy everything. What's the point of life if all you want to do is destroy? And then everybody had been alluding to this in the third act. She's missing that one element, maybe the fifth element, love, to kindle hope.
Mhm.
Because she says it, I was built to protect. I was not built to love.
Mhm.
And Corbin was trained to protect, but all he wants to do is have love. And he has love to give. And he fell in love with her with love for sight. Therefore, when he is able to come to the grips with the fact that I'm in love with this woman, and I have to tell her this because she says, "Tell me that you need me." If it's a trope. Is it a trope? Yes. There are all these types of things. Doing something for one person. Sometimes the only reason you're able to find the strength to do something in these types of heroic fantasy science fiction stories, these adventure stories, is that one person. You do it for that one person, whether it's your significant other, whether it's your child, whether it was somebody else important who meant something to you. Sometimes that one thing is enough. And by him telling her, I love you, I need you, the fact that she is needed by just one person, that was enough to justify life. And is it a tried and true trope? Yes, but it's an acceptable trope as far as I'm concerned. And the triggering of it always gets me because that's the romance of this thing. It's been building up. You get the payoff and victory, and it's a victory over the threat, not the villain, because the light of creation fires out of her in her pose when she was in her. I want to say her. Could that count as a sarcophagus when we first see her in the beginning? Because clearly she isn't like this.
Virtually.
That's just
it was
the
very
position.
mummy-esque. So sarcophagus would be. If that interpretation is correct, I would imagine a physical improvement to her once she accepted that she's going to start fighting because of Corbin. Like she's still needing to be held up by him, which is implying physical issues.
After she released Light of Creation, she's just
afterwards. Yeah, she's drained. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
drained.
That's fine. But like before the light goes off, she doesn't seem any better.
I think she just wanted to die. I mean, I'm going to throw this out there because we're actually going to get to it in about a month and a half. Revenge of the Sith, when Padme is dying, broken heart, just losing it all, just giving up, shutting down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I know that's not a great defense, especially for like the feel that I get, the little that I know about you, Jed. Like you're not accepting like my reasoning because I'm a woman. That means that like you can't necessarily understand, or Adam can't necessarily understand, but Adam does. So like I realize that I'm putting that onto it just as my experience as a woman. But when I was a kid, I didn't really have that experience beyond just being a kid, which is also another explanation that I have in this, is she's not fully an adult yet in her mind. So like a child will want to just give up because they're not getting their way. And that's also another reason. And what do? They'll like pout and just fall to the ground. So those are the things that I see that as maybe. And yeah, I don't know.
What I see it as, like as I said before, it's her whole, and Legatus is good word, it's despair, it's hopelessness. She's given up and she's broken.
Like it's her physical reaction to the anguish that she's feeling.
And I do love the light of creation thing. And I swear you guys can, when the light of creation hits Mr. Shadow, I swear I hear him screaming. I hear like a scream from him.
I hear it too. I don't know about
and there's a Bruce Willis scream mixed in there too, because he's like point blank. I'm right on top of this.
One thing I wanted
nothing else, I would be terrified.
You're right. There was something that you said, and it actually, I feel like it, for me, it puts a nice little bow on it, because in the beginning, we talked about how it's for the greater good, like sacrificing these individuals with the priest. And then in the end of the story, it actually is the reverse, where what saves it is those individuals in that moment save the greater good.
Yep.
Like so one side of the coin is somebody has to sacrifice individuals for the greater good, but the other side of the coin is you also have to recognize the individuals are what make up the greater good, and we have to, like, that saves everything. And before I forgot, because my memory sucks, I had to say that.
Well said. I could not agree more. That's pretty much it. Then we get the nice little scene where they're humping in the reactor. Victory hump. Well earned. They got it. They deserve their moment.
From that, I guess he got hurt by the light gun.
Corbin took some Corbin took classic Bruce Willis battle damage in there, man. Classic. So he took. They needed just a little refresher, and then they woke up and said, "Hey."
Also, it could be a combination of them. Like in the end, like that also drained from him. Like I said before, we don't know if it's just her that's the fifth element, or is it both of them together. Like
either way, it's a nice happy ending. I love a good happy ending. It's a little comedy there, little sexual jokes, but hey, the guy gets the girl gets the guy, everything's saved, and it's nice and clean, and it didn't need a sequel.
No.
Anyway, so there you go. And we talked about the soundtrack throughout the whole thing, so I don't need to go. And I love the soundtrack. Told my story. It's in the DNA of the movie. It elevates the movie. It makes the movie the movie. So with that said, let's score it. Gal, because you're your guest this week, I'll let you score it first, so you're not influenced.
It is, for me, it's a 9 out of 10, because I don't think any movie is perfect, but this is absolutely close to it for me. And especially just even discussing it in this way, I've never really had this type of conversation about this movie. Just the things, it made me think more about it than just loving the movie, because I can just fall asleep to it. We talked about that with The Mummy. It's one of those for me, of course, but it's also one that I can just sit and rewatch. And there's just really small minor things that, and you guys, you also know that I don't do halves. So those little things that I don't like so much, that even are my head canon, that I will subtract a point, but that is really the only reason. The characters, the story, how they tie together, the foreshadowing, it's such a simple movie that actually has a lot of depth behind it, that I give it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah. All right. 9 out of 10. I also give it a 9 out of 10. I have very little criticisms about this movie. Mine are mostly tiny little world building points. This didn't make sense here. That makes sense. I didn't really dig into it, but little things here and there. But I always have a good time. I love everybody's performances in this. I forgive my little inconsistencies that I harp on when I do this, I forgive them because I will watch this multiple times in a year. It is a feel good, safe place movie for me where I just want to watch something and have a good time. And I love its pop culture influences. There are so many little quotes. You want to play it soft, play it soft. Want to play it hard, let's play it hard. All this kind of stuff. It is a fun time, and I'm just glad Jed liked it. Although his score probably won't reflect how much he actually subjectively liked it. So Jed, what do you got? What do you got on this one this week?
Oh, well, you did predict accurately. This movie is a lot of fun, and I would absolutely rewatch it gladly. And it's a dumb, fun movie as I see it. There's a lot of camp in it. It doesn't take itself seriously, and that reflects in the script as well, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It is what it intended to be, but that doesn't also make it a well-written masterpiece at the same time. If I were going off a subjective score, I'd be giving it not far off from you guys, an 8, which is high for me. If I were purely doing it off of subjective enjoyment, but I do believe that there are substantial writing flaws and inconsistencies, the biggest of which being the fact that he is the one that she falls into, his car. That coincidence is just too large for me to get over. So I have to bring this one all the way down to a 6 out of 10.
I had a feeling, but you know what? That's fair. Because that's the kind of stuff you look at. So I'm not gonna question that. And listen, guys, you guys know by now that for Jed, that's good.
That is good.
That's good. It's good. Anyway, there we go. There we have it. Fifth Element. I had a fun time. Gal, when you're not in Vegas this week, where can people find you?
You can find me on my channel. I recently started streaming. It's called Cooking the Books. And it's basically me taking your book list that is collecting dust in the corner and reading it to you so you can say that you've read that book. I recently finished Animal Farm. And then we're kind of on a hiatus. But next will be a sci-fi book. I'm trying to stick to public domain because I copyright stuff. Yeah. But yeah, so you can find me on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time most of the time. So doing that. And then, of course, on Dermy's channel, Horny Alf's channel on Sundays for gaming. And then Bet's Talking Thursdays and Saturdays. And I really appreciate you guys bringing me on. This was a lot of fun. I loved it.
You are always welcome on this channel, gal. You know that. Jed, what are you doing this week? Because you're not in Vegas. You're like me. You're not in Vegas this week.
I will not be in Vegas, unfortunately, so I'll be doing my normal channel grind for the week and working on book stuff behind the scenes, which is always taking up so much of my time.
I promise I'm going to start reading. I promise.
Someday he'll read it. The chat might get to it.
It's looking at me right here. It's looking at me right here on the screen. It sits on my desktop staring at me every day. Guys, I'm pre-reading for Jed. That's all you need to know. I'm pre-reading Jed.
And he's going to hate it.
I'm going to hate it. On principle, because he hates everything I love. Anyway, all right. So check it out. Links to go. As for myself, you guys, you know who I am. You're here, whether you're on Jed's channel or mine. Thank you over here, chat. We love you. We appreciate you. Hit that like button. Subscribe to everybody's links in the description below, whether you're watching now live or on the re-upload. And until Jed, do we have a movie next week?
We do have a movie for next week.
I almost forgot. What do we got? what do you got for us?
So we've often gone into the movies from Adam's childhood, like some Charlie Chaplin. We've gotten some
asshole
to the moon, to the Earth and the Moon, or whatever that one was. Just some oldies.
Music.
Yes, I mean he already had grandkids.
Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, I guess.
That's a great movie.
I
love that movie.
Well, listen, I'm not in a musical mood, but we will get there. It's right there. It's right there.
To Seven Brides for Seven Brothers?
Yeah, I have it right. It's right there.
Yeah, nice.
Right there.
It could not be made today, and we say that about a lot of things, but that one especially
on talent alone. Let's not forget the fact that they kidnap all the ladies.
Yeah, that's the part I was referring to.
Yeah,
I recently found that I have a physical copy of it on DVD. I was shocked.
Very nice.
I had no idea.
Well, Gal, I think that means you have to join us when we watch it.
Absolutely.
Twist my arm.
Yeah.
Well, so I decided to break the mold and not do something from Adam's childhood and do one from my childhood, even though it is so recent that it's barely in our okay age range or date range. We will be watching the Nicolas Cage classic Jerry Bruckheimer Disney film National Treasure.
Oh, I'm behind that. I get behind that.
I love that movie so
I can
much.
get
I
behind.
love
I can get
both
behind
of
that.
them.
Yes.
I think I've only seen the second one halfway through. I don't think I've ever finished the second one.
It's not as good, but it's still good.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right,
I
hey,
wish
hey.
we were getting a
All right.
third one, but Nicolas Cage's quotes about the third one recently make it all worth it that we're not getting it.
All right.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
National Treasure next week, and I already hinted at it, so I'll tell you because May is coming up. We'll be taking a short break first week of May because Jed won't be here. But when we come back, being that it's May, and we did it last year, we got to go around because also actual Star Wars Day does fall on a Saturday this year. May 25th.
You're probably
is on a
glad I'm going to be gone, so we don't have to do it on May the 4th.
Yeah, so we're not doing it for. We are not doing on a fake Star Wars Day. When Jed gets back in May, we will be doing the prequel trilogy, ending with Revenge of the Sith on actual Star Wars Day, which will be followed up by my annual Star Wars Day stream. So it's going to be a busy day. Anyway, guys, so National Treasure next week. And thank you, Gal, for being here as always.
Thank you.
And
great.
thank you again to the chat. We appreciate you guys. Everything you do keeps us going. All right, guys, take it easy. I can't speak. I'm hungry. Bye. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, check out my gaming channel at Renaissance Nerd Arcade, and follow me on X Twitter under @TheRedNerd. Thanks again for watching. Take it easy.